All right, so you're ready to take the leap and become a weaver, huh?
Hmm.
Not just, dabble a little, but like really go for it. Build a career, the whole 9 yards. Well, today, we're going to dive deep into how to totally ace that job interview. We're going to arm you with the answers and the insights to seriously impress.
And it's not just about knowing how to like thread a loom, you know? We're talking about showcasing your passion, your skills, like how you fit into this whole world of weaving. It's a whole thing.
It really is. Okay, so picture this. You're in the interview, and that classic first question hits you. What inspired you to pursue a career in weaving? It's so easy to just default to those generic answers, but come on, you want to stand out, right?
Totally. This is your moment, right? You got to weave a story. Like, what really lit that fire in you, you know? What got you hooked on this whole weaving thing?
Yeah. Was it like a grandparent or someone who always had a loom going when you were a kid? Was it something you just stumbled across later in life?
Exactly. Maybe you were blown away by the history of textiles, all those cultural connections, or maybe you're all about the sustainability angle, working with natural fibers. You know, that's huge these days.
Speaking of which, it's like that thing in a career guide where they talked about how more and more people want to know where their clothes come from. It's like this whole transparency thing is spilling over into textiles big time.
Totally. And that's where RoleCatcher comes in, right? It can actually break down those job descriptions, like read between the lines almost, and help you tailor your answers. So say you're applying to a small craft studio, you know, real artisan vibe. You might want to play up the creative side, the artistic part that drew you in. But if it's a huge textile mill, you might focus on the technical stuff, the precision, that kind of thing.
Whoa. It's like having a personalized cheat sheet for every single interview. Okay, so the interviewer's like, okay, impressive. Now tell me about your experience using different types of looms.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Okay, so you don't just want to be like looms. You got to get specific. Like, what kind of looms are we talking about here? Silk looms?
Mm-hmm.
Carpet looms? Ever used a jacquard loom?
Yeah.
Those are wild. They're like the OG computer programmers of textiles using punch cards to make these intricate patterns.
Right. And the career guide, they did a great job of showing just how diverse this field is. Like, you've got everything from super delicate silks to, like, heavy-duty carpets. It's crazy.
Yeah, for real. If you happen to have experience with a more, I don't know, unique kind of loom, now's your chance to brag a little. It's
Yeah.
what makes you stand out, you know?
Totally. Okay, brace yourself. Here comes a question that can really trip people up.
Yeah.
How do you ensure your woven products meet quality standards? And, like, you can't just be like, I'm a perfectionist, I triple check everything. You got to show them you get it, like, what quality control means in the weaving world.
For sure. For sure. This is where you prove you're not just winging it. You've got a system, you know, a process. Think about the steps, right? You're inspecting for any flaws, making sure the pattern's on point, that the tension's right, and you're like documenting everything super carefully.
It's like those loom checkout sheets, right? The career guide mentioned those. It's not just paperwork. It shows you understand traceability, being accountable. You're a professional.
Exactly.
Which, speaking of, brings us to another important one. How do you maintain a safe and organized weaving workspace? Don't blow this off. It matters.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Safety first, right?
It's easy to think of weaving as this, like, zen, quiet thing, but it's actually pretty physical, you know?
It is, yeah.
And the career guide even mentioned, like, repetitive strain injuries being a thing if you're not careful.
Absolutely. You got to be mindful of your body, for sure.
So how do you answer that one?
You want to show them you're on top of it. You understand safety protocols. You know how to maintain your equipment, store your materials properly, all that good stuff. Make sure there's no hazards in your workspace.
Right, like tripping over a pile of yarn. Not a good look.
No, not at all.
So it's about, like, showing them you're not just skilled, but also responsible, professional.
Yeah,
All that good stuff matters when you're part of a team, right?
100%. And speaking of teams, you know, a lot of weaving gigs, especially bigger projects, it's all about collaboration. So get ready for this one. Can you describe a particularly challenging weaving project you've completed? This is where you get to shine. Show off those problem-solving skills and how well you play with others.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be, like, the most mind-blowingly complex project ever, right?
Right, for sure.
It's more about...
It's about the story.
Yeah, exactly. Like, pick a project where you had to overcome some serious obstacles, where you collaborated really well with someone, and, of course, where you totally nailed it in the end.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
all about how you tell it.
Storytelling.
And, you know, this is another area where RoleCatcher can really come in clutch. Its AI can actually take a look at your past projects and be like, okay, for this job, highlight that one. It shows off the skills they're looking for. It's pretty amazing.
So, like, if you're applying for a job where you're going to be, like, dealing with clients a lot, RoleCatcher might suggest you talk about a project where you really had to manage expectations, incorporate their feedback, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's all about tailoring your answers to each specific job and showing them you're the perfect fit. So,
Right.
we're talking about showing off those skills, right? Well, let's talk versatility for a sec. Because they're going to ask, what is your experience working with different types of fibers and materials? This is where you get to, like, really weave a tapestry of all your knowledge.
Oh, I like that. It's true, though. It's not just, oh, yeah, cotton wool, done. You
Yeah.
got to get specific here. Maybe even get a little, technical, impress them.
Exactly. So have you worked with, like, luxurious cashmere? What about sustainable bamboo fibers?
Mm.
Or even something a little more, unexpected, because the career guide made a good point about how much a weaver's understanding of all those materials, it really affects the final product, how it feels, the quality.
Totally. It's like a chef knowing their spices.
Uh,
The more you understand your ingredients, the more creative you can be. And the more successful, obviously, right?
100%. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about, staying current, keeping up with what's new in the field, right? Because an interviewer might be like, so how do you stay up to date with all the latest weaving techniques and trends? They want to know you're passionate, that you're invested in growing as a weaver.
Right. This is where you prove you're not just stuck in the past.
Yeah.
Like still using the same techniques your great-great-grandparents used.
Exactly. And the career guide actually had some really cool suggestions here, like workshops, master classes. Those are great for, like, hands-on learning and, meeting other weavers.
Networking for weavers. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. It's a thing. But it's not all in person, obviously. The career guide also talked about, like, online communities and those industry publications. They even mentioned a couple, like...
Oh, yeah. They mentioned, like, Weaver's Digest and the Loom Room
Yeah.
online forum.
Yes, exactly. And even just, mentioning those in an interview, subscribing to those things, it shows you're in the know. You're part of the wider weaving world. You know what's up.
It shows you're a lifelong learner, always curious, always pushing yourself to learn more. That's huge, right?
Big time. Okay, so speaking of skills, let's talk time management for a sec, especially when you're juggling multiple projects. Interviewers always ask about this, like, how do you prioritize your work and meet deadlines?
Oh, yeah, the pressure's on with that one. Because weaving, it's not always just like one and done, right? There's usually multiple steps involved, from like warping the loom to actually finishing the fabric. And it can get pretty hairy, especially if you've got a bunch of projects going at once.
Totally. So this is your time to shine, show off those organization skills. Maybe you have a system for tracking your deadlines or like a method for figuring out what needs to get done first.
Don't underestimate the power of a good to-do list, am I right?
100%. The to-do list is key. But also, don't forget communication. Like, how do you keep everyone in the loop? Your team, your clients, whoever, they need updates too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Effective communication is so key, for managing expectations and just avoiding those, like, misunderstandings that can happen.
Totally. Okay, so for our final question, let's talk about something I'm, like, super passionate about. Sustainability. So how do you answer this one? How do you incorporate eco-friendly practices into your weaving? Because it's a thing now, right?
It's huge, and it's coming up more and more, and for good reason. The textile industry, it has a big impact on the environment, so weavers, they need to be aware of that. Think about it.
The career guide did not let us forget that point. They were really emphasizing how, like, consumers are getting smarter, right? They know about the environmental and social costs of fast fashion, and they're, like, actively looking for sustainable options instead.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're answering this question, think about the choices you make in your work. Do you use, like, organic cotton, recycled fibers, things like that? Are you minimizing waste? Can you conserve energy in your studio?
Right, like, every little bit helps.
For sure. It's all about showing that you get it. You understand the impact of your choices and you're trying to lighten your footprint.
It's about being a responsible weaver, not just for the craft, but for the planet too, right?
100%. And, this doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. Don't stress. It's more about just showing that you're aware and you're willing to learn, to try new things, adapt, all that.
Be open to it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, another area where RoleCatcher is your best friend. Because it's AI, get this, it can actually, like, scan job descriptions and pick up on those keywords related to sustainability.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crazy. So, like, if a company is really big on eco-friendly practices, RoleCatcher will make sure you play up those parts of your experience. You know what I mean?
So smart.
Right. It's like having a secret weapon, making sure you're putting your best foot forward every single time.
Okay, so we've covered like a ton of ground here.
Yeah.
From those nitty-gritty interview questions to the bigger picture stuff, sustainability, career growth, all that. But before we wrap up, I'm kind of curious. We talked about landing the job, but what about after you're in? Like, how does a weaver's career actually, I don't know, evolve?
That's a good question. And it's something the career guide actually did a really good job of laying out. They talk about these three main stages of a weaver's career. Entry level, then you've got junior weaver, and then like the big leagues, senior weaver. And it's cool how the focus kind of shifts with each step.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Tell me more about that.
So, like, entry level, it's all about the fundamentals. You're learning the ropes, building up your skills, getting comfortable with all the different looms and materials. You're probably working pretty closely with like a supervisor, following their lead, really honing in on consistency and accuracy.
So it's kind of like an apprenticeship in a way, right?
Totally. You got it. You're learning from the pros, building that solid foundation. And then you move up to junior weaver, you start taking on more responsibility. Maybe you get to manage your own projects a little more, try out some new techniques. You might even get to like train some of the newer weavers.
Oh, cool. So there's like a leadership aspect that starts to come in.
Exactly. And then as you get more experience, become more of an expert, you might even decide to specialize in something. Like you could focus on tapestry weaving, handloom weaving, even go into like industrial textile production. It just depends on what you're into.
So cool. So many paths you can take.
Right. And that's another thing RoleCatcher can help you with. As you gain experience, you can keep your profile updated, and the AI will actually like analyze everything. Be like, okay, based on your skills and what you've done, it looks like these career paths might be a good fit, or these specializations. It's wild.
That's like having a personal career counselor on call 247. That's amazing.
Right. Technology's crazy.
It really is. So for anyone listening who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by all this, just remember, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Just start with those core skills, find what lights you up, what you're passionate about, and let that guide you.
Perfectly said. It's a journey, not a race, right? The important thing is to enjoy it. Enjoy the learning, the growing, and just like creating something beautiful with your own two hands.
So well said. And there you have it. Your crash course in not just acing that weaver interview, but really building an amazing career.
It's about the skills, yeah, but it's also about that passion, that creativity, really pouring yourself into this craft.
Yeah.
Now go out there and weave your magic.